You can't stop the clock. You can't stop the clock. You can't stop time. This rain right here, guys, reminded me of a time in Ranger School when I was laying down. I was so tired. I was in mountain phase and I was so tired. I mean, I hadn't slept. We were doing these patrols and we would wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. We would be on go until 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock the following morning. And we would go to sleep for like an hour to 2 hours tops and then wake up and do it all over again. And one night we were on that cycle and we got to this patrol base in the mountains of Georgia, okay? So it's late at night. It's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And it's raining just like this. But in the mountains of Northern California, the mountains of Georgia, in the winter season, there was so much fog you could barely see the guy in front of you when you were walking along the roads of the mountains that we were on. And I remember being so tired. We got to the patrol base and it was raining just like this. I remember the rain pouring down on top of me. And me just thinking like, what in the hell am I doing, bro? I'm cold. I'm wet. I want to go home. I ended up making it through Ranger School without recycling. First time go. Okay, for those of you guys that don't know much about Ranger School, that's very difficult, right? 33% of people that attend Ranger School finish it. Many of those 33% end up restarting Ranger School over and over again. They recycle. So I don't know what the number is. Maybe it's like 10%. Somebody I'm sure here on YouTube will correct me in the comments. But it's got to be around 10% or less make it through Ranger School the first time without restarting any phase or getting dropped. I had a lot of close calls, and that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about in this video. Is I want to share with you guys how to get through the hard times so that you finish the first time. How many of you guys have been in a scenario, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a working professional, sales rep, maybe you're in the military. How many of you guys have been going through something hard in your life and you felt like you just couldn't do it and you tapped and you quit? You said, fuck this, it's too hard, I'm going the other way. How many of you guys remember a time in your life where you did something difficult and it got hard and you didn't tap and you pushed through? But for some reason, like today, when hard times hit, you have a really hard time getting back on track. So I'm going to share with you guys, I'm going to talk to you guys about how to get through hard times. Okay? And I'll share a couple stories with you from Ranger School, and I'll share a couple some messages with you to really get this point to hammer home. So in life, in business, in as any level of success, you're going to be faced with hard times. Okay, this last weekend I did an event. It's called the Command Shoot. It's where me and other Army Rangers or Green Berets get together and we take students through tactical shooting. We teach them business, we teach them life, and we help them decompress as leaders and become better. One of my clients came to the event, working professional guy. He's having a hard time with failure. And in his past, whenever he failed, he identified with it, right? He used to say, when he failed, he felt like he was a failure. You guys ever been there before? You failed and you felt like, I'm a failure? Well, wake the hell up. Failure is an event. It's not a person. Failure is an event. It's something that happens. It's not who you are. It's not an identity. So me and him were talking about like how to basically pull the lessons from failure out so that you can get on track and actually achieve what you want. I was teaching him that failure is a good thing. Failure is fucking honest. Failure tells you the truth. When you win, you don't actually know how good you actually are. But when you fail, you know what your limit is. So no matter what you've been through recently, guys, if you have been through some hard times and maybe you failed, I want to let you know that failure is an event. It's not a person. So shut the hell up. Get back on fucking track. Pull the lesson and let's start moving forward. Let's continue mission. Okay? So in order for you to actually get through the hard times in life, you have to make a choice to get back on track. That's what I'm telling you first. Right? You have to make a decision to get back on track. You have to make a decision to see the mission through. Like in Ranger School, I had to make a decision that I was going to see Ranger School through. That was the first decision that I made about Ranger School. I said, I don't care how long it takes. I'm here till it's done. I don't care if it takes me 62 days. I don't care if it takes me a year. I don't care if it takes me the rest of my military career. I'm in it until I pass or I can't go anymore. And so I had that mentality when I went into Ranger School. And that's the first switch that needs to turn on all of your guys' minds. Whatever task it is that you're about to confront, to go for, whatever objective, whatever mission you have, are you fully committed to the mission? Are you willing to do whatever the fuck it takes for however long it takes? Are you? Will you do it for however long it takes? If it takes you your whole life, are you committed to it? Because if you're not, you might as well just stop now. Stop wasting your time. So I went to Ranger School and I told myself, listen, I'm here. I can't control whether or not I make it through the first time. Do I want to make it through the first time? Yeah. But could I tell if I was going to be able to? I don't know. I couldn't tell. But I knew mentally I was going to commit to however long it took. Are you committed? Committed means you'll do whatever it takes. Interested means you'll do what's convenient. I was committed. Are you committed to your mission? So I made it to mountain phase, right? And I had plenty of close calls in Ranger School. Don't get me wrong. I failed a patrol. I got bad peer evaluations on the first phase, Derby phase, and I had to fix all that. And I turned it all around. I got top rated as a peer in mountain phase, Florida phase. I learned from my mistakes. But I learned from my mistakes because I knew I was committed no matter what. I was going to finish Ranger School. So I'm in mountain phase, and I'm going through the woods and everything like that, and I'm laying down in the patrol base like I talked to you guys about. And, I mean, it's so nasty outside. It's like the worst conditions. And I remember laying there in rain, worse than this now, had my poncho on, and I'm laying there trying to look through my weapon, and I'm so tired. I'm trying not to fall asleep, but I'm just, like, resting my helmet on the back of the rifle handle. You know the carrying handle on a rifle? I was laying on the M4. Like I was laying, or it was a dummy. It was a dummy weapon. What is it? No, it wasn't a dummy. It was an actual M4. So I'm laying there either way. And I'm laying there with my helmet on the carrying handle, trying to basically relieve the pressure on my neck. If you've been to Ranger School, you know what I'm talking about. If you've been in the infantry, you know what I'm talking about. You're laying there, you're just like, fuck, my head's so tired. You're just like, put your helmet on the carrying handle so it looks like you're looking down your fucking sights, but you're trying to catch some rest and but you're laying there in the cold, man. And the rain's coming down, and you're just like, what in the fuck am I doing? But at the same time, you're also trying not to fall asleep because you know if you fall asleep, you're going to get dropped from Ranger School. So there's this internal battle that's going on, right? External distractions like the rain is hitting you. Internal distractions like negative self-talk is coming through. And, in those tough times, I asked myself, what the fuck made me get through that? What the fuck made me not tap when those times were hard? And I knew I was committed to finishing Ranger School. I knew I was committed to the mission. But it wasn't until later on that I really learned what kept me going through Ranger School. And I'll get to it. It was a lesson I learned from one of my Ranger squad leaders in the 75th. But anyways, I ended up making it through that night, and I woke up. I actually dozed off on my rifle, and I woke up the next morning like an hour later or whatever, and I was freaking out because I thought I was going to get dropped, and maybe somebody knew that I was sleeping, and there's panic mode when I woke up. But much to my surprise, I didn't get caught dozing off, and we went on the next mission. Well, one of the next missions after that, we ended up in it started snowing really bad in Georgia, and it got so bad the cadre called a weather emergency. They ended up putting us inside of this emergency tent, and I remember the snow was coming down. It was blizzard outside, and they put whatever it was, 20 or 30 of us inside of this tent, and we were so stacked up like we were like sardines in a sardine can inside of that tent. We stank. I mean, we hadn't showered for days. We hadn't been out in the cold, the wet, the rain, the snow, and we were so fucking tired that when we got to that tent, we didn't care how bad we stunk. We didn't care how tight we were. I remember people being on top of my right leg, on top of my left leg, and I remember being so uncomfortable, but none of that mattered. I just fucking laid there trying not to fall asleep, and then I knew the instructors. We all knew the instructors had to go tend to the actual course, so they weren't going to be around. And so we didn't have any other choice but to rack out. And they let us rack out. They were like, fuck it, you guys can just rack out for a little bit. Call this your patrol base. So we fell asleep in there like sardine cans. Why didn't I tap? Why didn't I tap? Why didn't I quit when things were so bad? Well, I moved along in my career. So I finished Ranger School and then actually ended up going to the 75th later on, right? So I got to the 75th Ranger Regiment. And I'm talking to one of my squad leaders. He was a sniper, my sniper squad leader. Well, he was my squad leader, and then he became our platoon sniper afterwards. So he was my weapons squad leader at the time. And I remember talking to him the first month that I was a platoon leader in the 75th. And this is the lesson that he gave me. And I forget how we got on the subject, but we were talking about getting through hard times, getting through selections, getting through the difficulties in life. And he said one thing that he always told his guys that were going to Ranger School was this. He said, you can't stop the clock. Man, that is such a good fucking lesson. And what he meant by that was that no matter how hard the time is, how hard the time that you're in, the season that you're in, however hard it is, you can't stop time. So Ranger School, the day is eventually going to end. The patrol, the rain is eventually going to end. The snow is eventually going to end. In your life, the season that you're in, the season is going to eventually end because you can't stop the clock. And it occurred to me when he told me that lesson that he gave his candidates going into Ranger School, his Rangers, that's how I made it through when I went through Ranger School. I realized when I was laying in the prone and the rain was coming down, when I was in that tent in the snow, or any other multiple times that I was in Ranger School where I wanted to tap and quit, the reason I didn't is because I knew deep down that eventually the season that I was in was going to end. And that time, you can't stop time. All I had to do was weather the storm and just keep going because you can't stop the clock. Eventually there is going to be an end. Eventually there is going to be an end point. Like this last weekend, I did another 72-hour fast, and this one was brutal. Fucking brutal. I was like, not feeling it. I did it. I did that event. I did multiple workouts, and I was just having a hard time this weekend with the fast. It was a water fast, so just water and electrolytes. But the thing that got me through was the message. You can't stop the clock. I knew that all I had to do was get through the time. However much pain I was in, however much discomfort I was in, time was continuing to roll. And if I just weathered the storm, time would eventually pass, and I would be on the other side of that 72 hours. And so that's your guys' message today. Whatever season of life that you're in, if it's a difficult one, remember, you can't stop the clock. Love you guys. Be committed to your goals, not interested. If you are committed, eventually the end result is inevitable because you can't stop the clock. See you in the next one. Conquer all.